Dom, there's really nowhere to land.
Who said anything about landing? Coming for you, son.
In Fast X, Dom Toretto's life experiences a sudden disruption when a shadowy figure from his past returns to take revenge on him and his family. In other words, it's another Tuesday for him.
Oh my God, bro.
Now it's just Tuesday the 10th. And it seems to be some kind of bank holiday as well, because it's a bit of a more casual step down. I mean, whereas last time we drove a car into space, this time we don't even go to space. What the heck? In all honesty though, Fast X is perfectly adequate. It's like Eminem would say, if you know what to expect, you can expect your expectations to be met. Spaghetti. If you like these movies, you get what you like. You get the fast cars and the family and the fair ladies and the explosive action and even cool set-piece sequences you haven't seen before. In that regard, well worth the price of admission. But that said, I did notice one central issue with Fast X that I thought would be worth discussing. An issue that most likely played a part in it becoming a bit of a box office letdown, all things considered. The issue that the movie is simply too big. And what I mean by too big is exactly that. It's too long, it has too many characters, too many scenes and plot lines, it's doing too much to the point of hurting itself.
Butthole!
Now, let's say your first instinct is to disagree.
No!
It's not too long, it's 2 hours 20 minutes, that's nothing for a modern blockbuster. There's not too many characters, I like all these characters, I wanna see them all. If you say that, you know what? You're absolutely right. Size is subjective. In movies, at least. There's no way to concretely determine the value of length and size because every viewer will experience them differently. As per usual, Filmento viewer, you are correct. But, in terms of a few holy cardinal scriptures of screenwriting that all of us must adhere to, the movie is factually too big. It is too long because there are scenes that should have been cut, that could have been cut without anything changing. It is too stuffed because a lot of characters have nothing meaningful to do and just kind of wander around. It is doing too much because what it does sometimes goes against what it at its core is meant to be. So today, let's look into that. What are these holy screenwriting rules of size that this film fails to adhere to, and how do we ensure that we don't? Here's why Fast X is just too damn big. The first cardinal rule of screenwriting about size is that every scene should advance either story or character and this way serve a larger integral purpose. Like how in the opening flashback we learn about Dante, the son of the mob boss from the fifth movie who lost everything at the hands of Dom's family. This scene or sequence is crucial to the story. What we see later functions only if we see this, right? Well, there are a lot of bigger and smaller scenes here not like that. When Letty wakes up in a CIA prison, she finds herself in the company of the villainous Charlize Theron.
Oh, hello there!
And once they've then put together an escape plan, Letty turns around and says,
Guess what, Biz?
yeah, they fight and then Letty escapes alone only to realize that she can't go anywhere. So she comes back and... And then they revert back to their earlier dynamic and escape as two enemies forced together. In other words, nothing was changed or achieved with this fight. You could cut it out of the movie and the plot would function exactly the same. The audience wouldn't even notice. Same on the character side. Letty comes back down to see that Charlize Theron is there ready to go, and then they kinda continue where they left off, as enemies plop together. Which is a sorry excuse for a scene compared to if you use the scene to fundamentally evolve their dynamic. Like maybe in the fight, Letty knocks Charlize Theron out, and ties her up because she can't let her escape. But then when she realizes that she can't get out on her own, she makes a proactive choice to put her trust in Charlize Theron and free her from this prison. Free the killer of Dom's child's mother. That would make their dynamic very different than what it was moments before. The scene would serve a character purpose. But as of now, they kinda just pause their escape to fight a bit and then carry on. In the context of the movie, I understand why. You have these two badass actresses, you have to have them do something. Why not fight? Fair enough. But in terms of the screenplay, it doesn't need or deserve to exist, and thus in this form should have been cut. And sadly, there are entire plotlines here plagued by this very problem. It's as if the filmmakers keep pulling random events and obstacles out their ass because they can't find anything better. The fugitive plotline with Tej, Roman, Ramsey, and Han, it's pointless. The only objective for them in the entire movie is to go to a rendezvous point set by Dom, allegedly.
Dom is gonna meet us at the rendezvous point. But in the meantime, we have to stay under the radar.
Which is already pretty weak for a Fast and Furious plot. Just travel somewhere. And it's also pretty weird, since if they need to go from here to here, why do they go here to begin with?
Stupid, I'm not gonna let you.
But what makes it worse is that their scenes don't generally even advance this plot. For some reason, they suddenly determine that they must get weapons before the rendezvous point.
We need guns, artillery, tanks.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So they visit this black market dealer, where they joke around a bit and then realize they were reported to the CIA. That's it. They don't get weapons here, they don't get in danger here, the scene is empty and could have been cut. Then they go see Jason Statham and get ambushed by the CIA, which could have happened directly anyway because you already established that the CIA is monitoring Dom's associates, and then they fly to Portugal and get shot down, and that's it. That's the whole plotline.
That's about it. See ya.
It's as if the filmmakers know they have to include these characters but have no clue what to actually do with them, so they kinda just take them somewhere and have them stroll around cracking jokes and fighting while also doing the same dynamics as always before. It's like their dead weight plastered onto the script with duct tape out of necessity. And to be fair, it may work for you in this movie because it's the 10th movie. Yeah, John Cena mostly just travels somewhere with Dom's kid and nothing about the dynamic really changes. But it's John Cena with Dom's kid, it's pretty cool. All I'm saying is that most likely you don't have that luxury. You can't base an entire blockbuster plotline on simply traveling to a place allegedly set by another character for no clear reason, even though that character himself most of the time is not traveling there because he actually has meaningful stuff to do. Every scene and sequence and plotline must earn its place in a larger sense. If it doesn't need to be in the movie for the movie to work, then you must either make it so or eliminate it.
Would love it if you could take him out. Take him out.
Take him out.
Like for drinks?
No. Take him out.
Take out. Like to dinner?
Take him out to a meal?
Take him out.
Like on the town?
Party?
No, take him out.
What?
Another holy verse of screenwriting around size is that characters must remain faithful to their core to preserve the fundamental point of who they are. To be fair, Fast and Furious does have some leeway on this because it's full of exaggerated characters.
Wow.
Let me see your profile picture again.
He must have put a filter on.
You kinda have to keep exaggerating to not fade away into the loudness. But one character that does suffer heavily from doing way too much in terms of his core
Here we go!
is the villain, Dante. The essential gist of Dante is that he's the son of the Brazilian mob boss from Fast 5. He was born into greatness, destined to inherit that greatness, and after it was all destroyed by Dom, he vowed to get revenge, which he's coming for today. All great so far, but the more of Dante we get, the further from this dark emotional core we get. On the interior side, this means that his personality is very oddly goofy. Upon every entrance, he makes some funny remark.
Buongiorno, Roma!
Upon every decision, he adds some hearty-har commentary.
Dorks, what are we blowing up? What? Vatican? Okay, you guys are going to hell.
Upon every action beat, he acts like a juvenile. Overall, it's like he's doing an impression of Heath Ledger's Joker if Heath Ledger's Joker was 12 years old. You know, except for the times when he's suddenly super serious again because he lost everything.
Through your suffering, I'll fulfill my destiny. Your pain has just begun.
And look, I understand why they did this. The franchise is full of silently brooding tough guys, so this is a great way to set Dante apart. The issue is that it's done in a way that damages his core. When we see him doing his nails while talking to his dead helpers that he killed for no clear reason, we kind of forget that, oh yeah, he's motivated by this great tragedy that destroyed his life. If you want Dante to be this insane jester seeing the world as a joke, fine, but then adjust the core accordingly. Have his core be about him having gone fully over the edge, about him wanting to make Dom see the world in a funny way Dom made him see it. But don't pose him as this tragically serious being only to then constantly do the opposite. Shades are great, but total light and darkness cannot coexist. All they can do is take power away from each other.
Let these dry, finish those mojitos, and I told you! You know me suffering! Someone's gonna come and bury you guys too. I'm gonna go wash my hair. You killed my father on this bridge!
I'd love it if you could take him out. Take him out.
Take him out.
For drinks?
No. Take him out.
On the exterior side, this means that the power dynamics and levels Dante plays at are all over the place.
What the is that a fuck?
The basic idea is that he comes from a wealthy family and could have anything, but then lost everything and was reduced to nothing.
I am a man with no name. It's nothing.
And yet in practice, it doesn't quite seem like it. He dresses in expensive designer clothes, he drives incredible custom cars, he's had a major CIA operative on his payroll for years, he carries fashion bags full of millions of dollars and tosses them around like nothing. Very clearly, he has lived a life of luxury this whole time to a point where it has no value to him. And it's like, but then what's with all this talk about him losing everything at the hands of Dom? What's with him having to steal Charlize Theron's men and resources alone when he already has enough resources to own half of Rio De Janeiro? You know, it's like the filmmakers wanted him to be this lonely warrior determined to climb the tallest mountain with nothing but his hands and legs, but then they remembered that it's Fast and Furious, so of course he also needs to have the cars and the money and the infinite army for the heroes to fight, even though those two sentences do not gel.
How do you think that looks?
And once again, I understand, I sympathize. This is a big franchise with big characters and big everything, so maybe you do need a big villain internally and externally to compete. Maybe for this movie it was the correct choice, you decide. But what I'm getting at is that for you and your script, it's very important to trust the strength of the character core. Benicio del Toro's character in Sicario had a bunch of dialogue in the original script to pose him as this badass warrior, but then he was the one to say, no, I don't need all that. All I need is silence and a few looks. The character will do the rest.
Don't ever point a weapon at me again.
So do yourself a favor and be like Benicio del Toro. Identify the core and support the core, but trust the core. Do not do too much. Do not go against it. The third holy screenwriting size verse is that action shouldn't be separate from the story, but should rather continuously progress and evolve the story same as every non-action scene. As a positive example for context again, the opening flashback chase with the vault is pretty tightly made. When Dom drives to the bridge with Brian and decides to stay back,
We're not gonna make it!
You're right, we aren't.
that tells us something about this character. When Dom rams enemy cars with the vault, that establishes the lethality of it, which is necessary for us to know as we then get to the beat where it's used to defeat the villain. It's not just action, it's a step building on a step building on a step. And as per usual in this franchise, the movie is pretty good with this. In many action sequences, there are these constant beats developing character or power dynamics or something. And because of that, these sequences often do not feel too long. They feel as long as they need to be.
This
is perfect.
But just to highlight the importance of this topic, let's look at a couple places where that's not so. When Letty and Charlize Theron fight, they kinda just fight. They fight here, and then they fall to fight down here, and then they fight as the lights flash, and so on and so on. They do use the surroundings, which is cool, but the battle itself is kinda the same from beginning to end. In terms of story, you can't really tell the difference between the beginning and the end. We don't learn anything new about them or their dynamics.
Definitely on the big side.
It's more like she punches and then she punches and yada 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 until at some point the scene cuts away.
So yeah, that's about it. See ya.
Same when Team Han gets ambushed by a CIA hit squad in Jason Statham's garage. The only narrative value this fight sequence has is that during it, Jason Statham realizes that Han is not the enemy. Aside from that single thing, this 2-minute sequence is just the same old stuff we already know to be true, and thus it can feel kinda meh.
Okay, this is getting a little ridiculous.
And for contrast, take one of the greatest narrative confrontation fight scenes of all time, the final stand between Sherlock and Moriarty. The reason it's so great is because it's not just a fight, it's this constant evolution of who these people are and what are the power dynamics between them. Sherlock stops Moriarty's assassin to ruin his war. Moriarty reveals war to be inevitable and that he, as a rich, politically immune man, can wait. Sherlock takes away Moriarty's immunity by taking away his riches.
About that fortune of yours, I believe it's just been substantially reduced.
Moriarty makes the fight personal by targeting Watson and his wife. Sherlock makes the fight physical by using his Sherlock vision. And then.
Come now. You really think you're the only one who can play this game?
Oh no!
Capcom. Target weakness.
Just strategy. Wound taking its toll. Injury makes difference.
Again, it's this constant step upon a step upon a step. The situation at the end of the sequence is very different from what it was in the beginning. The confrontation doesn't stop the story, it is the story as action. But that said, the story of the action must also be organic. When Brie Larson enters a shady bar to meet Dom, the first thing she does is ask around for Dom like a fed.
I'm looking for someone. How about around on me?
You know, so that some random bad guys can show up and so that she can beat them up to establish how tough she is.
Shots? No. Shots?
It does do the job, but it also feels pretty forced. If she's meeting Dom, why not just look around for Dom? Why does she immediately start fedding, and why does this group of men immediately gang up on a lonely woman half their size? The action canvas the story is painted on is so thin that you can see right through it.
Okay, this, I don't even know. Like, this takes...
So the point is that your action must be organic and last the duration of the story within it. If Dom saves civilians at the beginning of a sequence and then saves more civilians later in the sequence, notice how it's the same thing repeating, how it can make the sequence feel repetitive and long. It may work pretty well here because it reinforces how Dom pushes himself to save every single life, but I just want you to be aware of that. Unless your action is only as long as it needs to be what it is meant to be, it's too long. And if it's too long, if it feels too stuffed and big, there you go. Your movie is too big.
And then this, yeah, we need to go to the hospital or somewhere and get it fixed.
That's about it. See ya.